Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Columbia Online, a congregation striving to embody courageous love and radical welcome and deep connection. I am Dottie Matthews, your grateful affiliated community minister, and I am so glad to welcome you to our community. One of the bonuses of having our online worship is being able to connect with many folks from Missouri and beyond. So wherever you are connecting, we welcome you today. A few comments about protocol for today's online worship. In addition to Zoom, we are streaming live on Facebook, and Zoom is in webinar mode, so we can't see you or hear you. Feel free to eat your breakfast in your PJs. Don't worry if your environment is a bit noisy. You will be able to say hello and to interact with the service through the chat feature on Zoom and the comments on Facebook. And if you're with us on Zoom, make sure you select panelists and attendees if you'd like to chat so that everyone can see your comment. And this will be particularly useful if you wish to share a joy or sorrow when we reach that portion of the service. A few notes about accessibility. We are using Zoom's native auto captioning service, which means you will automatically see generated subtitles at the bottom of your screen. And if you prefer, you can hide or alter the subtitles by clicking the closed caption button on your screen. We know that auto captioning is never quite entirely accurate. We've had some pretty funny translations sometimes, but we hope that it's close enough to be helpful. We will also be providing spoken descriptions of the videos and images that we use, and we'd like to invite you to please contact us if you have any other accessibility or inclusion needs so that we can strive to meet your online worship needs. If this is your first time worshiping with us, we'd like to invite you to please fill out our digital visitors card in the link provided in the chat. Let us know a little bit about you. Our minister, the Reverend Molly Hausch-Gordon, is away on sabbatical until August 2nd, and we are honored during that time to be served by the Reverend Dr. C.W. Dawson as our sabbatical minister. And I would like to thank the folks that make our online worship possible. Thank you today to our online usher, Jenny Bosaler, and our worship associate, Todd Iveson. And as always, we are grateful to our amazing staff, April Rodiguero running slides, Erin Dyke-Hawley preparing digital liturgy, religious educator Jamila Batchelder, music director Jeremy Wagner, and our pianist Hans Bridger-Eruth. This morning, we also joyfully welcome two of the leaders of the UU Service Committee. Reverend Laura Randall leads their congregational engagement team, and Reverend Mary Catherine Morin is the CEO and president of the UUSC. Welcome to all. Mary Catherine, I would love for you to bring a word of greeting.
Thank you, Dottie. I would love to. Good morning, Unitarian Universalist Church of Columbia. My colleague Laura and I are happy to be with you and very grateful for your warm welcome and all of the support we've received to be here. I'm sorry to miss being able to connect at this time with your wonderful minister, Molly. Just as you experience her ministry as a blessing, I want you to know that her wisdom and creativity are a blessing in our larger movement. Like many of my colleagues, I have more than once found Molly's words and vision to be just what I needed to share in my own ministry setting. I'm sure you're not surprised to hear how widely admired she is. And while I'm offering praise and appreciation, I want to thank Dottie as well. Dottie, thank you for your incredible ministry and for the ways that you've reached out and connected and brought your gifts to UUSC. UUCC, you may not know that Dottie is one of UUSC's clergy ministry representatives and has made Campus, which you will be hearing more about, possible by her commitment, persuasion, and stubborn persistence. We are so fortunate to have Dottie as a ministry partner for our work. I'd also like to thank you, all of you, for the service and justice ministry of this congregation. From being a sanctuary congregation to answering the call from Honduras, to coming forward to serve your local community, even during frightening times. Your ministry is a powerful expression of our values. You know what they say about where to look for the people you need for an important job, that you're supposed to look for busy people. Well, we're here today to invite you who are already meaningfully engaged in justice ministry to partner more deeply with us at UUSC in our work for international human rights. Thank you to those of you who are already engaged as members and advocates. We appreciate your support from the collection today, and we especially hope that you will sign up to receive our updates and calls for action. UUSC's impact in the world is fueled largely by individual Unitarian Universalists. We hope those of you who have not already joined us will want to join us today. Now, will you please take a deep breath? Find a comfortable position for your body and sink into this time of inspiration and this space of renewal with the help of Hans. Thank you, Hans. Our opening words for this morning come from the Reverend Kathleen McTeague. This is called The Common Good. We breathe the common wind of the earth, no matter where we live, who we love, what language we speak. We drink the common water of the earth, no matter what our race, how long we live, the coverings we use to drape our forms. We walk the common paths of the earth, no matter our beliefs, how far we move from home, the gold we carry, or its lack. May we live from these truths, our hearts open to the holiness all around us, our hands turned always toward the common good. Our gathering hymn is number 108 in our hymnal, My Life Flows On. The hymn is performed by Michael Freihunt on piano and melodica and Dorothy Freihunt on vocals. The lyrics are shown on the video against a dim image of a church in the background with a lit candle in the foreground.
My life flows on in endless song above earth's lamentation. I hear the real, the far-off hymn that hails a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? What though the tempest round me roars, I know the truth that liveth. What though the darkness round me flows, songs and the light it giveth. No storm could shake my inmost heart, while to the rock I'm clinging. Since love prevails in heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing? When tyrants tremble as they hear the bells of freedom ringing, when friends rejoice both far and near, how can I keep from singing? To prison cell and dungeon vile, our thoughts to them are ringing. Sing friends with shame or undefiled, how can I keep from singing? How can I keep from singing?
We now light our chalice, the symbol of our faith in the community that holds us, and the bright flame of the human spirit that unites us. As we share an image of our church chalice on the screen, you may wish to light a candle at home or look in the chat for a digital chalice. Please join me in lifting your voice in homes across our city, country, and world to share our weekly words of affirmation shown on the slide and shared in the chat. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Good morning. Today, we're going to be learning a lot about the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. Some of you might already know about the work they do, and some of you, this might be new to you. But their work and their history are actually with us each week as we light our chalice. The symbol of Unitarian Universalism, this flaming chalice, has actually only been our religion symbol for a pretty short time. It became our symbol in the 1980s. It began actually as the symbol of the Unitarian Service Committee, the precursor to the UUSC. The origins of the flaming chalice began in the work of the Unitarian Service Committee that they did during World War II, helping refugees, and you'll learn more about that later in the service. The organization wanted an easily recognizable symbol, and the Czech artist Hans Deutsch, who himself was a refugee, envisioned the flaming chalice. as a DRE, the next part of the story is near and dear to my heart. Many years later, UU children and youth in a congregation, I believe it was in Ohio, learned the story of the heroic work that the UUSC did in their RE classes. And inspired by this story and by the message of a faith in action, they began lighting a chalice each Sunday morning. This practice spread within the youth community from church to church, and more youth groups started to adopt it. And then the youth taught it to the adults. And the adults too were inspired by this history, this faith in action. And so it became the symbol of our faith. When Hans Deutsch created the symbol, he left its symbolism somewhat ambiguous, open to interpretation. And in each of the countless times over the years that Unitarian Universalists have lit chalices, we have had the opportunity to draw forth meaning for ourselves that inspires us in our faith. So for our centering today, I want you to focus on this symbol, the flaming chalice, be it the one you have at home or this one behind me. And I want to spend some time meditating on it. We'll bring our attention to each part of it. And as its meaning arises for you, I invite you to share it in the chat, and I'll read them later. So think about the chalice itself. This vessel with a stem designed to be offered to someone else, to pass from one hand into another. It's an ancient object of ritual. Take a moment to let your mind wander back to this ancient history of chalices offered hand to hand. And now move your attention to the bowl of the chalice. Wide and open, how it holds and how it releases. And to the candle that is held within it now, this source of fuel. And finally, draw your attention to the flame, the pure energy that it embodies. Notice its variation in color, its heat, its light. What is the flaming chalice revealing to you today about the meaning of your faith? I'll see what you have shared. You can share in the chat. Just share a single word of what it represents to you. Community. Interdependence. Welcome. Hope. Openness. The light of truth. Commitment. Let's sit for a moment longer with this chalice. Its light can feel so small, just a single candle flame. Just as sometimes the work we do in this world can feel small, not enough. But now imagine all the chalices being lit all across this city today, across this country, across this world. And beyond our own flaming chalice, of all the lights being kindled, each calling forth meaning, calling us to action, community, interdependence, welcome, hope, openness, the light of truth and commitment. Each of us doing our small part to bring this meaning into the world. Imagine what all of us together can create.
And now, as we share an image of lit candles and our joys and sorrows stones on the screen, I'd like to invite you to bring your loving attention and compassionate presence to our community as we share the joys, sorrows, and prayers of our community. Let us hold one another in heart across the distance, remembering our connections and feeling that we are held in love amid life's sorrows and joys alike, now and always. I invite those gathered to share your joys and concerns in this chat. I have a personal joy to share, which is I will be seeing my son this afternoon as he drives through Columbia on his way back home to Kansas City. So I look forward to it because I have not seen much of him over the last year. Robin Duplay expresses hope for healing for all who suffer from chronic pain. Sarah Shipley Hiles expresses joy for Tom's son, Ryan, getting married yesterday in DC. The Reverend Laura Randall expresses her concern, holding India in her heart as COVID searches there. And the Reverend Dottie Matthews expresses sorrow for the nephew of a friend who was in a terrible car accident, resulting in multiple injuries and from which he may not recover. And Jamila Batchelder expresses joy that we get to host a college friend of her son's who is visiting from Ohio. Holding in our hearts the joys and sorrows of our congregation and the larger world, spoken and unspoken, and in the spirit of prayer, let us listen to Loosen, Loosen by Allie Halpert. Singing along at home is highly encouraged as we play this video, which shows a still image of a tree by the water at sunset, with the name of the artist and song laid on top.
Loosen, loosen, baby. You don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby. You don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Holy breath and holy name, will you ease this pain? Holy breath and holy name, will you ease this pain? Loosen, loosen, baby, and you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby, and you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby, and you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby, and you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby, and you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go. The weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go. The weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go. The weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go.
Good morning. It's wonderful to be with you today and share this video we created to share the origins of UUSC with folks of all ages. The video shows me, a woman with pink skin tone and shoulder-length reddish blonde hair and tortoiseshell glasses. The video is interspersed with historical black and white photographs of Nazis marching, refugees fleeing, and the Unitarian Service Committee offering aid. Here's the video.
Hello. Today I want to tell you a story about how the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, or UUSC, began. It all started over 80 years ago when Unitarians in the United States were watching what was happening in Europe, and they were getting very worried. They were worried because a man named Hitler and the people he was leading, called the Nazis, were becoming very powerful and hurting a lot of people. The Nazis believed some very mean and wrong things. They believed the only people who were any good were people who were just like them. They wanted everyone to be the same as they were, and if you weren't, well, they would kick you out of your house, they would take all of your things, they wouldn't let you work, and eventually, they started killing people who they thought were different from them. Jewish people, gay people, people with disabilities, all of them were targets of the Nazis during this time. It was very scary. What do you think you would do if you saw something like this happening? Would you want to help? Would people in your UU community want to help too? It was the same over 80 years ago. The Unitarians wanted to help people in Europe who were being targeted by the Nazis. So, a Unitarian minister and his wife from Wellesley, Massachusetts, Waitstill and Martha Sharp, went to Europe to see how they could help people there. They found lots of ways to help when they got there, but they had to be creative because the Nazis were always watching, and it would be dangerous if they got caught. The Sharps helped get the paperwork people needed to escape to safer places. Sometimes they would even sneak people past guards wearing disguises. They also helped people, including kids like you, get food and clothing in a time when it was very hard to find both. The Sharps were very brave, but they didn't do this work alone. They worked with people in the Jewish communities in Europe. They worked with the other Unitarians in the United States who sent them money and other supplies so more people could be helped. That is how the Unitarian Service Committee, now called UUSC, got started. Today, UUSC still works around the world to help people who are being treated badly find safety and have their human rights respected. We work with migrant communities who fled their homes in Central America and are seeking asylum in the United States. We work with Rohingya Muslims in Burma who are facing inhumane treatment and displacement by their government. We work with people around the world whose home communities are threatened by climate change, and many more. Both back then and today, UUs come together through the UU Service Committee to work with people who need it most. And we will continue to be there to help in the future, because Unitarian Universalists believe in doing what we can to make the world a better and safer place for everyone. Thank you for the ways you help us do this work. We couldn't do it without everyone joining together. Thank you for listening to this story.
Our next hymn is Keep On Moving Forward by Emma's Revolution. The video shows 4 women, 3 with pink skin tone, brown hair and glasses, and 1 with dark brown skin and short black hair that appear in separate frames in various combinations on the screen. 3 of the women are singing and the other plays percussion.
Gonna keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Never turning back. Never turning back. Sigamos adelante, siempre adelante, siempre adelante, sin volver atrás, sin volver atrás. Gonna keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly. Never turning back. Never turning back. Amaremos con pasión. Siempre con pasión. Siempre con pasión, sin volver atrás, sin volver atrás. Gonna reach across our borders, reach across our borders, reach across our turning back. Vivamos sin fronteras, siempre sin fronteras, siempre sin fronteras, sin volver atrás, sin volver atrás. Gonna reunite the family, reunite the family, reunite the family, never turning back, never turning back. Familias reunidas, siempre reunidas, siempre reunidas, sin volver atrás, sin volver atrás. Gonna keep on moving forward, keep on moving forward, keep on moving forward, never turning back, 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 never turning back.
Peace.
We love you.
It's a joy to greet this new day together with all of you. Like all of you, I arrive with sorrow and joy, fear and faith. When we sing together, I know we will love more boldly, never turning back. When we pray together, I know that our hearts break alike for the sorrow and loss and injustice in our world. We cannot carry this weight alone. We cannot carry this weight alone. And so I thank you for being here, showing up with your joy and sorrow, with your fear and faith. Together we can hold and carry what we must. The world is crying out for values of equity, justice, compassion, liberation. Climate forced displacement, the criminalization of human beings based on their identities, a deadly global pandemic. As these crises transition from acute to chronic, we know very well that going back to business as usual is not an option. Not if we seek to live up to these values and create a world in which everyone's needs are met and everyone's rights are ensured. A world that we call beloved community, built on love, a liberatory love, the kind of love that calls us to stay in the struggle until everyone is welcome, everyone is whole, everyone is free. This is what we are called to now, nothing less. I'm so grateful to have learned some of UUCC's own story of being partners in building this new world. And I want to thank Dottie for sharing some of your story and hers with us this morning.
Thank you, Mary Catherine. It's so great to have you and Laura with us. And I'm grateful that you invited me to share a part of this service with you. I am an unofficial member of the UUSC team and really enormously grateful to be so. And it occurs to me that this relationship is not entirely dissimilar to my role as an affiliated community minister with UUCC. In both cases, my efforts are all volunteer, but having the institutional support and connection to make that work possible is and has been invaluable. Beyond doubt, the Congregational Accompaniment Project for Asylum Seekers, which we call CAPAS, would not exist without the depth of support provided by the UUSC. So we thought it might be of interest here to share some of how all this evolved, actually, because UUSC's own immigrant justice journey is very much a part of CAPAS's unfolding story. When we relocated to Columbia in 2015 as retirees, Rosie and I had not planned much except to savor our glorious freedom from daily obligations. However, after the 2016 election, I, like so many others, was aghast at the blatant racist policies and hateful rhetoric being heaped upon our southern borders. And so I got involved in Missouri's interfaith group, Faith Voices. I know several of you are part of that too, driving local immigrants to their required appearances in St. Louis and Kansas City and doing Know Your Rights trainings. Then early in 2017, UUCC was going through our own discernment process to become a sanctuary congregation. And the reflections and conversations that we had during that time only deepened my commitment to stand with those who were fleeing violence to pursue a viable life in this country. As a child of an immigrant myself, I felt very strongly that migration is a human right, and most especially when one's home country has become a place where it is absolutely impossible to find safety and livelihood. The next came an opportunity when Molly asked if I'd be interested in offering some time with justice groups across the country that were organizing to identify and vet potential sponsors for asylum seekers in the migrant caravans. You recall those that were coming over, and that's a misnomer, by the way. These people were merely fleeing fiercely untenable life circumstances and were logically traveling in groups to limit their own vulnerability. But labeling them as migrant caravans sounded much more sinister, and it served certain political purposes by suggesting some choice on their part to invade the US en masse. Anyway, as I learned about the complexities of the asylum process and the significant challenges of sponsorship, it occurred to me that many UU congregations like ours are well poised to commit themselves to the long and uncertain journey of close accompaniment with asylum seekers, taking on formal sponsorship through the meeting of the federal government's requirements, but beyond that, to journey side by side for the frustratingly long, it can take years, legal process. The emotional, logistical, and financial support needed is massive. And much of that time, the migrant person is prohibited from working legally. So they are denied access to social programs like those that actually have refugee status have, and someone needs to provide their housing, their groceries, their medical expenses, their legal support. Every aspect of life for asylum seekers comes from the generosity of others for many, many months. So my thought was, if we could connect with immigrant justice teams of UU congregations across the country, we might well find volunteer sponsors to accompany those who are so dramatically in need. I brought the idea to the UU Service Committee, Mary Catherine, significantly, and they welcomed it as a very logical addition to their far-reaching works of justice already being promoted and aided. And after many months of planning, the Congregational Accompaniment Project for Asylum Seekers was launched in the fall of 2019. COVID slowed everything down, of course, but yet there are now dozens of congregations and faith groups that are working with CAPAS, and those groups have provided sponsorship and visible acts of solidarity for a growing number of migrant siblings. And our work continues. Now, I share all this because many of you might not have known that UUCC's justice work was very much at the root of things, well before the CAPAS program was a glint in anyone's eye, as my mom used to say. And now UUCC and CAPAS continued together, as many from this congregation are actively engaging in supporting of Edler and Yadira on their asylum journey. And we are currently engaged in conversations about potentially bringing in another young family into our circle of support. So what now? Because of this work, I'm often asked about what is occurring right now for asylum seekers awaiting release from detention or permission to enter this country. Has this new administration really brought significant change? Honestly, most of the legal experts that CAPAS works with have told me that we are in a wait and see mode. Many from the new administration seem to be sincere in wanting to unwind the horrors of the past 4 years. But we know that there are layers and layers of fixing that must be done just to bring us back to 2016 policies, and those were not nearly good enough. So we must continue to make our voices heard, continue to be visible and outspoken advocates and allies and activists. This is how we create change. We know it is abundantly true that power concedes nothing without a demand. So if we love justice, we must add our voices to the ongoing demands for equitable and just treatment for all people. This is one reason that I am so grateful for groups like the UUSC and so many others that help educate us on the issues. The world is changing so fast and the problems are so complicated and so deeply woven into society. We need reliable sources to guide us to effective activism for Black lives, for our migrant siblings, for climate justice, for Indigenous rights. All of these we know are interrelated and all need our voices and our commitment to, as our dear Adrienne Marie Brown says, to intentionally change us in ways that grow our capacity to embody the just and liberated worlds that we long for. I am profoundly grateful to be a part of the UUCC and the UUSC justice-loving communities.
Thank you so much, Dottie. Thank you for all that you do, for sharing that story. I'm grateful to learn more fully about UUCC's relationship with your work and with our work. It's just such a beautiful expression of our faith and a powerful affirmation of the worth and dignity of every person. Dr. Cornel West reminds us that justice is what love looks like in public. Justice is often thought of as something separate from us, an impartial system perhaps, or an objective ideal that somehow resides outside of human bonds. In reality, though, the heart of justice and the key to justice is relationship. Justice is co-created between people and between communities. This means, very importantly, that justice requires more than charity, at least charity as it has come to be practiced. Charity actually is not really possible in relationship, not relationship that is mutual, respectful, equitable. Charity so often implies that I, with my hard-earned and well-deserved affluence, wisdom, or whatever it is I happen to have, that I can fix what is broken in you. There's a dangerous idea that lives in this kind of charity. If I have earned the wealth and education to exercise this benevolent power, then there must be some reason you have not. It's not that we consciously think we are better. It's not that we consciously embrace this supremacy, or not usually, but the impact remains. And so charity in this way perpetuates inequity. For all of us, I believe this is hard to resist, but for those of us with particular kinds of privilege, it is especially hard because of the deeply ingrained systems of white, male superiority and advantage that live in our hearts and in our institutions. Justice shatters entitlement and any Calvinist notion that our social and economic circumstances are a result of our own goodness. This is what we mean by inherent worth. We didn't earn it. You can't earn it. At UUSC, we also like to speak of inherent power as a way of acknowledging a person's power to determine their own lives. In her writings, author Rachel Naomi Remen cautions against the kind of service that implies helping in order to fix others. She offers instead a way to understand justice work as being in service of wholeness. The Australian Indigenous activist Lilla Watson beautifully asserts her own worth and power when she demands, "If you have come here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together." Our liberation is bound up together. That's the heart of beloved community. That's the way to beloved community. We often use the words of prophets who have told us that none of us are free until all of us are free. But for those of us with considerable privilege, it's easy to forget, which in fact is a great way to describe the nature of privilege. At UUSC, we strive for collective liberation, my liberation bound up with yours, working with grassroots partners who have a vision of beloved community that drives them to innovative and creative solutions. Our partners around the world are facing forced displacement due to violence, religious oppression, climate disaster. In Nicaragua, some are building a new agricultural economy that's feminist and community-based, even as they face the constant threat from a brutal authoritarian government. In Burma, partners have been working for decades for the rights of the Rohingya Muslim minority who have been slaughtered, had their villages destroyed, and now today, since the terrible military coup, have joined many others in Burma fighting for true democracy. In the South Pacific, our partners are creating governing frameworks for addressing the climate crisis, frameworks that center the self-determination of the people most affected. And here in the United States, as you heard from Dottie, CAPAS puts us in relationship with people who are seeking asylum as they strive to survive. Within the context of immigration injustice in our country, we join many communities seeking new ways to change the system, to act as neighbors instead of enemies, to affirm a truth that could not be more clear. We are all connected, whether we realize it or not, whether we act like it or not. Your liberation is bound up with mine. Justice is accompanying each other as we build the world where all are free. My colleague Laura had the opportunity to accompany some others in building beloved community, and I'm thankful for her reflections.
Thank you, Mary Catherine. In the fall of 2019, I had the privilege of joining with UUSC partner No More Deaths on a journey to the Arizona-Mexico border on a trip with the UU College of Social Justice. No More Deaths has been traveling to the inhospitable borderlands between Arizona and Mexico for more than a decade to leave water and food for migrants making this treacherous journey. I knew the water drop in the desert was going to be difficult. I thought I was prepared for the heat and the sun. I had on a sun hat, long sleeves, prescription sunglasses, new but broken in hiking boots, and what felt like a second skin of sunscreen. I was far less prepared for the rocky terrain and the large thorny plants that offered some shade, but also made it very difficult to keep your bearings. I was not prepared for the ants that would bite at your feet and climb up your legs if you should stand in one place for too long or, heaven forbid, sit down. I wasn't prepared for the wasps, with bodies the size of my finger hovering as we set jugs of water at the trail crossroads. I later learned these wasps were called tarantula hawks, just in case I needed more nightmare fuel. But more than anything, I was not prepared for how beaten down I would feel in the desert. The exhaustion that sets in is as emotional and spiritual as it is physical. The No More Deaths volunteer leading our group of 11 into the desert that day was doing so to give us a small taste of what migrants from Central America endure to come to the United States. Since the mid-1990s, the United States has employed an immigration policy the government calls prevention through deterrence. As ports of entry become more restricted and populated areas along the US-Mexico border become increasingly militarized, migrants are forced to attempt travel through the inhospitable and often deadly mountainous desert landscape, a stretch of more than 2,000 miles along the southern US border. Approximately 9,000 migrants are believed to have perished through the prevention through deterrence policy since it was implemented in 1994. This number is approximate because most migrants reported missing by their families in Central America are never found. They are disappeared. No More Deaths has helped recover the remains of more than 3,000 people in the Sonora Desert, however. Make no mistake, these deaths are part of the US immigration policy. These deaths were and are expected and planned for. These deaths are an intentional and integral part of prevention through deterrence. Our trip through the desert was a pleasant stroll compared to the days or weeks migrants face in the desert, almost always with fewer provisions than we had with us. We had an experienced guide with us in the desert. We were hiking only a few miles on public land. Our light skin, flat accents, and US passports meant that our questioning by Border Patrol agents was brief and perfunctory. When we eventually reached the crossroads where two trails met, we placed the canned beans we brought into the lidded plastic bucket labeled comida. We placed the gallon jugs of water we carried next to the few others that were already there. One of the jugs had a short message written on it in black Sharpie. No estás solo. You are not alone. After getting this brief introduction to desert travel, I cannot fathom choosing to make such a journey lasting days or weeks for any other reason except desperation. My admiration for the people who attempt this crossing is enormous. The amount of courage and grit required is astounding. My sorrow is also enormous. That living conditions in some countries are so dire that a person would risk such a journey is a hard truth to bear. And yet, here we are. Beautiful and deadly, the desert teaches its lessons with a quick certainty. It teaches you the vitality of water and the importance of food. It shows you what it means to rely on community and require compassion, because without these things, you will not survive.
Thank you so much, Laura. Having also made the journey into the desert to leave water and learn about the impact of US immigration policy, your story helps me remember the desert's lessons. Our acts of sanctuary, of accompaniment, our service to wholeness and connection, all of these resist the lie that tries to convince us that only some deserve water, only some deserve food, only some of us deserve safety, and that others can be forced to die in the hot desert, to freeze in ice holding rooms, to be separated, torn away from those they love. Accompaniment is an act of resistance to the lie that we should be enemies, that we should fear one another. May our acts of love and justice affirm a truth that could not be more clear. We are all connected, whether we realize it or not, whether we act like it or not, no matter who you are or what side of an invented border you were born on. We breathe a common wind. We drink a common water. We travel a common path. No wall, literal or existing in our hearts, can make it otherwise. Friends, your liberation is bound up with my liberation. Justice is accompanying each other as we build the world where all are free. So may it be. Amen.
For our anthem, we share the familiar video of Circle Around for Freedom. This video shows Dr. Glenn Thomas Rideout, the Director of Worship and Music at the First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ann Arbor, a man with tawny brown skin wearing a black button-up shirt. He gesticulates while he sings from behind a desk in a room that looks like an office with several pictures on the wall and a music stand and keyboard behind him. On the desk are a number of items of spiritual significance. We provide you with the lyrics on the screen and in the chat if you wish to sing along. Circle Round for Freedom.
Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned. Circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for its soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom. Circle round for peace. For all of us imprisoned. Circle for release. Circle for the planet. Circle for its soul. For the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom. Circle round for peace. For all of us imprisoned. Circle for release. Circle for the planet. Circle for its soul. For the children of our children.
It's been such a joy worshiping with you today, UUCC. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. Since our founding in 1940, UUSC has continued to support people facing humanitarian crisis and displacement from their homes due to natural disaster, political violence, genocide, severe climate change impacts, and more. As we've been sharing, UUSC's work is based on a partnership model that centers the experience and leadership of the people who are most impacted by injustice. Like most UU institutions, we carry forward this bold work with a modest budget. We strive to work smart, strive to be agile, and our work with our partners, innovative grassroots organizers, and courageous activists has proven to be a very effective way of making a tangible difference in places where people are often left behind by larger, more bureaucratic organizations. We are proud to receive the highest rating from Charity Navigator for our financial health and our accountability and transparency practices. And we are able to do all that we do because people like you, indeed some of you here today, make it possible with financial support. Your support ensures that in these chaotic times, with threats to human rights expanding in many arenas, our response too can expand. That's why I'm inviting you to join us today in this work with a gift of any amount. We're so grateful that your collection today will be supporting the work of UUSC. Information on how to give is on your screen in the chat box now. Please go to uucomo.org/donate. And if you'd like to stay up to date on UUSC's work and how you can help, you can sign up for UUSC action alerts by texting UUSC to 52886. You can also sign up for email updates by going to our website, uusc.org. On behalf of the other 40 people on staff, and our partners and allies around the world, thank you. Thank you for your generosity and your commitment to human rights in this critical time. We couldn't do this work without you. And I believe we're going to have some piano music with Hans if he's still with us.
We breathe the common wind of the earth, and yet some struggle for breath at the hands of hatred. We drink the common water of the earth, and yet for some, waters of earth threaten their homes and their lives, and for some, there is not a safe drop to drink. We walk the common paths of the earth, and yet some are imprisoned for being far from home. Our liberation is bound together. May we live each day in a way that honors our common humanity and builds the common good. May it be so. Please join in singing our benediction. The words are on your screen and also in the chat.
Start the video. Yeah.
Now on leaving one another, may we give of hand and heart. Let us share our benediction, lovingly before we part.
Don't forget, our annual congregational meeting is this afternoon at 1 p.m. You can participate in the Zoom meeting at the link posted in the chat, or that link is available at our website as well. And now it's time for our coffee hour right now on Zoom, which you can enjoy prior to the annual meeting. Please join us at the link just now posted in the chat for the meeting ID on the slide. This is our chance to see one another's faces and catch up in a small breakout rooms. And our ministers for this morning, Mary Catherine and Laura and Dottie, are going to join us in the coffee hour, so you'll have a chance to chat with them as well. So thank you so much for being here this morning, and thank you for spending your morning with us. Have a wonderful day, and hope to see you in the chat.